What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Best Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Russler. Thanks again for joining me this week. I sit down with my old platoon buddy, Trevor Fuerst. He's just a great guy. He's a good dude. I love talking to him. He got to come visit me for a brief, 14 hours. The guy worked all day and then drove to make a trip just to see me, and we got to hang out and did a podcast. We talked about some serious stuff. We talked about religion, which is not something I thought that I would be doing when I did this podcast. But you know what? I don't mind it. If you don't like religion or you don't want to, be involved, then we just skip ahead. It's only for a little bit. But yeah, we had a great talk, and he's a really great dude. And I know you'll enjoy the episode. Please enjoy Trevor Fuerst. What's up, man?
How you doing?
Here we are. I'm good. Did you see anything else on there? Did it say anything?
No, it's just hard to
Yeah, it's all
trust a product if you don't exactly know where it came from, especially with everything on the market today.
So the guy that gave that to me told me, he's like, I work for that company. We sell these all over, blah, 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 blah. You can have it. And I was like, oh, cool, thanks. And every time I've gone, I'm like, well, why not? I don't have anything to do. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
and I just kind of always set it right back down.
Yeah.
But
This is giving me the same feeling that I see at the gas station where behind the counter they have, THCA 30%.
oh, yeah.
And it's just nothing but synthetic marijuana.
I thought you were going to say like the boner pills.
Oh, they...
It gives me that feeling where you're like, I don't trust this at all.
Yeah. Those are in the real deep bathrooms in the weird gas stations that have like the quarter slots.
Yeah, those bathrooms.
If you want your boner to feel this way.
Yeah, yeah, and it's always called like hornet tsunami or something like that.
Dragon fever.
Dragon fever, typhoon of fire, and you're like, I don't think I want any of that.
Yeah.
Do you want earthquake passion? Like, no, I'm okay. I've been traveling a lot, and so I've gotten real familiar with a lot of gas stations and gas station bathrooms, and that is a good way to tell. You're like, if you walk into a gas station and it's a little dirty, that doesn't mean it's a bad gas station, you know?
True.
But if you walk into the bathroom and you see that like quarter machine and it's got boner pills and like cologne samples.
Yeah.
You're like, I chose the wrong place.
And
Oh no.
It's so funny that you say that too, because all of those bathrooms, they all smell a certain way, but none of them smell like the colognes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all just really just a nasty smell.
It's just it's just you're like, well, how did they get low tide in Iowa? You know what I mean? How did they get it just smells like trucker ball sweat and dirty mop water. And then you're like, I don't think there's any cologne in here. There's never been a single scent in here.
Yeah, fresh out.
What's your favorite scent combination? What's the best scent combination?
Have you ever heard of Hinoki?
Hinoki.
Hinoki's it's a type of tree in Japan.
Yeah.
And it's got a super fresh smelling scent to it. And then Hinoki's good by itself, and I like lavender.
Lavender.
Yeah. Lavender's pretty good.
That's a good calming.
Yeah, my wife's got a couple flowers in her flower boxes. That's a catmint. You ever heard of catmint?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's another one, too. That's pretty cool. But my top two would definitely be probably lavender and Hinoki.
Lavender and Hinoki. That might be the classiest answer I've ever heard. A lot of times people, well, like me in particular, I always want something sweet smelling, but then I want like, burnt match.
Mm-hmm.
When like after a match blows out and you
Yeah.
still smell that like magnesium or whatever.
Yeah.
I want that with like.
Some tells me you might find that in
Maple.
a gray candle.
Yeah, that would be in a great. When are they going to make a candle that smells like burnt out candle? That's what I want. I saw one the other day that was like shooting star or something like that, or like something like misty galaxy. And I was like, please enlighten me as to what a galaxy smells like.
Yeah.
My wife had something the other day. She bought this new lotion from Bath and Body Works, and she was like, "Oh, you got to smell it. You got to smell it." And so I did. And then she was like, "Tell me, tell me what this smells like, or tell me what scents are in this. There's 3 of them." And I was like, "Vanilla." And she was like, "No." I'm like, "Okay." I was like, "Could you please just tell me like that?" She said pear, which I guess I could have gotten, fresh daisies, and sparkling clementine. I was like, "How did you really expected me to know sparkling clementine?"
I barely even know what a clementine is.
I don't know. I've never had a sparkling I thought clementines were like little oranges.
Aren't they? I'm
Yeah,
pretty
okay.
sure like the little baby oranges maybe.
Yeah, well, we didn't have sparkling clementine. We had non-carbonated clementine at our house. We had tap clementine, But I was just like, how could I have possibly guessed that? And she was disappointed I didn't know the answer.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know like 6 cents.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's the only it's like I know like vanilla, poop, like burning. Like those are the 3. Those
Burnt
are like
hair.
those are the scents that I recognize.
Yeah.
Because it's like, do I want to come closer to this or do I want to get further away from this? That is what my nose is for. It's not for sparkling clementine. Best Gatorade flavor.
I like the light blue one.
Yep. You and me both. 100%. That's
Glacier Freeze?
Glacier Freeze all day. All day.
Yeah.
Glacier Freeze, then Cool Blue if I'm in a pinch.
Yeah.
If there's no Glacier Freeze left, I'll try out a Cool Blue. But
I've really started to stray away from Gatorade over the years though, just because of the sugar intake.
I was about to
that's
say,
in it.
are you what sports drink are you going for if you had to pick one? Are you a Gatorade man or are you Powerade?
I would have to go with Gatorade. They have like a new kind that's like a electrolyte
Oh yeah.
mix now. It comes in like the almost like rectangular looking bottles.
I won't do it. You know why?
Why?
Because you know who they're trying to take over?
What?
Pedialyte.
No, they're not.
They're trying to take over Pedialyte.
Oh, I still drink Pedialyte.
I still
too.
drink Pedialyte all the time. I was about to
Pedialyte, too.
say.
I'm like, this shit ain't just for babies.
No. There's no better feeling like back in like my heavier drinking days. You wake up and you're like feeling miserable, and you open the fridge. There's an ice cold Pedialyte in there for you. Oh.
Yeah, I told the dude at the gas station that I live by, I'm like, I seen that Pedialyte has like the 12-ounce things now. And I'm like, if you can get this in your shop, I'll buy the whole case. I'm like, you don't even have to worry about it getting sold. I'll just buy them all.
I'll just buy them all. Yeah. I want in bulk, Pedialyte in bulk. There's going to be like some like kid flu pandemic or something like that. And everybody's going to be like, we need Pedialyte. And you're going to have just a warehouse full of them. Be like, well, let's do business.
Yeah.
Let's talk. But you're just keeping like the top 10% for yourself.
But Pedialyte, yeah, that's definitely helps out a lot.
That's next level. It doesn't even have to be for drinking. If you're really hot or you're just tired, I found that'll wake me up better than coffee sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just it's harder to come by. Coffee's everywhere.
Yeah.
But like if you're feeling like blah, Pedialyte. My new secret. Okay, so this is my new secret that I've been doing. The Emergency, those packets of just like orange powder.
Yeah.
Game changer.
Really?
Game changer. especially when you're like shaking like 200 hands after a show and it's
Yeah.
flu season and
Yeah.
you're like, oh shit, this is gonna suck. Or anytime I start to feel like a little congested,
Yeah.
put some of those in a water bottle like this, just shake it up.
Uh-huh.
It gives you like a good energy boost,
Yeah.
but it doesn't like it like protects your immune system or something like that.
Nice.
But you put an emergency and a Pedialyte,
Yeah.
I think you're bulletproof. You know what I mean?
Dude, Allie and I started to I've been doing it for some time now, and I've noticed like really, really significant changes, but we've been eating raw garlic. And
Really?
yeah, it's super super potent, but the risk to reward is so high. It's got so many properties in it that are just it ultimately extends life. Like that's what it can has the potential to do.
I've heard that. I've heard people talk about that. I just never
It's
raw garlic.
it's microbial. It's it's anti-inflammatory, it's anti-cancerous, anti-tumorous, anti-parasitic, antifungal.
I need anti-inflammatory for sure.
I mean, and if you just eat like 2 cloves on an empty stomach, that's like the most that's the best route to get the most benefits from it.
2 cloves. Okay. I was thinking for a second because there's a bulb
Yeah.
and the bulb is full of cloves.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking for a second that a clove was full of bulbs.
Yeah.
And so 2 cloves would be like 2.
Yeah.
Like, you just call me and I'm like, Trevor, I'm eating like 17 ounces of garlic a day, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
Yeah, right.
I don't know if I could. You're like, no, man, that's way too much.
And it has the ability to like thin your blood out. So it's not good to, so if you're like on a medication that thins your blood, it's not good to take. I would not suggest eating raw garlic with it just because it thins it out even more.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've had the tinnitus, the pulsatile tinnitus,
yeah.
all that shit. I don't have that anymore.
Really?
It took I don't take any other medications.
Yeah.
And my tinnitus has always gotten worse since I've been out. And I think a week or two in, when I was doing 2 cloves on an empty stomach, in the morning time, that went away. I started getting less angry. I don't have to take like an SSRI. It really has a lot of balancing effects.
I wonder if that has to do with the anti-inflammatory too. Because
Yeah.
if your body hurts, you're going to be more irritated.
Sure.
Because my wife has pointed that out to me. Because like on a day when it rains or it's really cold and like my back really hurts, she's like, "You're really snippy today. Are you hurting?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm hurting."
Right.
And the doctor told me not to take any more ibuprofen.
Yeah.
Because it destroys your insides or whatever.
Right.
So there's not a lot I can do for it, but I'm gonna try this raw garlic out because that could be a game changer. I'm pretty proud of myself because I am not on any medications,
Nice.
and I've weaned myself off of all prescriptions. Which, I mean, I'm not the picture of health, but it's like I feel like I'm in that's a good place to start.
Sure.
Because I don't know, I don't know. I'm not talking down about it, but there's a lot of psych meds and stuff out there where you're like, is this helping or is this causing other problems?
Let me ask you this: how many people do you know that have been on synthetics that further on in life have more problems because of the synthetics that they've took?
Tons. But me, I mean, I went from, like, when I got out of the Marines, I went from 0 medications a month to 16 or zero medications to 16 in 3 months.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I traveled, I had a gallon size Ziploc bag just full of pill bottles. And it was like I had to get up and I had to take these 4 in the morning and then these 7 at night. And then, like, you know, it's just like,
Right.
there was so much stuff that you had to constantly keep doing. And then it would, like, one thing would cause a problem, so then you take a pill to fix the other thing.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to get back to wanting to do it like the right way, like the healthy way.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think I don't know. I'm hoping it works out, but we'll see.
Yeah. And for some reason too, oops, shit. My bad.
Is it your bedtime alarm?
No, that's the time. Yeah, I gotta call my wife here and remind her to turn my plants off.
Oh, we can pause anytime you need to.
Can we
Yeah.
pause
And that's easy. All I have to do is just you line it up, and then every time I clap, you're like you see it on like the line or whatever.
Okay.
And you're like clip, and then it just
The power of editing.
It's like it never happened.
Yeah.
It's like woo, and then all of a sudden we're just on to something else.
And another thing too that I just one last thing to tie into the raw garlic thing. They've actually done a lot of studies with like cancer cells of cancer all throughout the stages, stage 1 through 4, and raw garlic actively will kill cancer cells, and it will wipe you of it. It's that potent now. Call me crazy, but it's hard to find on the internet. But they don't want you to know these things because like stuff like this would take out a lot of the pharmaceutics.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of the industry. Or pharmaceutics.
100%.
It's like it's a vicious cycle. It's like take A, then you have to take B, what it'll cause this, and now you're taking C, D, E, and F, and on down the line. But raw garlic's a superfood for sure. But I'm sorry to beat the dead.
No. I'm glad you did, because that might be something I'd look into, because
For sure.
I don't know. I need to change it up. I was in a real bad place for a real long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And it's just, it's one of those things where you feel like you're just in a hole and you just can't get out. And nothing you do ever feels good enough. And it's like you're always coming up short. And luckily, I'm very thankful that the last, 6 months or so, things are slowly trickling, coming my way, that I'm like, okay, this is better, and like, I feel like I'm pulling myself out of that hole a little bit, but I know what you mean. It's like, it's crazy how it's just, that's all anybody ever says is when you're like, hey, I'm not feeling too great, or hey, like, I'm really stressed or whatever, and people are like, oh, well, you should go see a doctor so they could give you something. And it's like, I don't want to take something for the rest of my life. I just want to feel better, you know? And maybe that's a good kickstart, and no shame to anybody who has to be on those, It's probably better that you are than aren't. I don't know your situation. But it's like,
everybody's different. Everybody's different. But everybody has also, I want to say, the same end goal, and that's to be content with life and happy.
Exactly. And one thing that, like, another thing about, like, I know a couple people who they take a medication to help block, like, certain feelings, like depression or anxiety or whatever. And I'm like, I understand not wanting that to, like, run your life, but at the same time, like, aren't we supposed to feel those things?
Absolutely.
Like, aren't we supposed to, like, have these feelings for a reason? And, like, maybe that's your body's warning system. And so it's like, I understand if you can't control it and it's, like, taken over, then maybe, maybe you should take something or whatever. But, like, should you shut it out completely?
Exactly. And with a lot of people today, I think it's a societal issue. Like, it's a mainstream problem. When people are faced with an issue, you can go, well, this will shove it under the rug. The Lexapro will shove it under the rug. Or you can go, okay, something's not feeling right now. Let's dig deeper.
Yeah.
Let's figure it out.
Why do I get anxious when I drive past the post office? You know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh, because they deliver bills, and I know that that's a bad thing, and I might not be able to pay this month, or blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, well, how do I fix that?
Right.
Like, oh, I get really stressed out on the 15th. And it's like, yeah, but that's also when my truck payment is due and my child support is due and it's like, okay, so
Child support.
it's like, all right, man, you know, maybe deal with these things. Like, I don't know.
That's a big
I
one to
feel
stress
weird
over.
because since I'm not a doctor, sometimes I think these things and I want to say them, but then I don't want people to think that like, oh, I believe this 100%. I'm also kind of just feeling it out. You know what I mean? But it's like, it's also just me saying like, hey, this is what's going on in my brain. Like, does this make any sense to anybody? And
Yeah.
then the internet blows up and they're like, no, you're retarded. I hate you. You know, you're like,
Right.
it was just, okay.
And like, you know, people can say that people fight their own battles, in which they do, but isn't it everybody's job to like work their way through it the best of their ability
Yeah.
in the most righteous way they can?
Well, it's like you just try. You know
just,
what I mean?
Exactly.
You just try.
Exactly.
You don't have to be great. You don't have to be like, you know, everybody respects the number one person. Everybody respects the Michael Jordan, Michael Phelps, Tiger Woods, you know, because they're great. They're fantastic. But if you ever meet someone like I mean, you meet anybody who's like just trying, you still enjoy meeting them. You know what I mean? Like,
And you can see that they're trying.
yeah, you don't have to be the greatest of all time.
Right.
Like, you could just give it a shot. Who knows what's going to happen? You know, like, just try to be you.
Right.
Whatever gets you through the day, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So doing comedy is cool because I get to meet all different types of comedians at all different levels of success. And when you meet someone who's famous, it's cool for about 30 seconds. And then you're like, so what's up, man? You like waffles or like, you know, like you just,
Right, yeah.
you're just trying to be a normal person there. And you realize like, oh, you're just a dude.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
you're just a normal guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's almost more fun to work with people who aren't as famous because then you're just like, yeah, we can just be two people. We can just hang out. You know
it's
what
more
I mean?
relatable.
A little bit, but also like, now there are some people that I've worked with who are like super famous and have been for 30 years and they're still super nice and super fun to be around and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, sometimes you get people who are like on their way up and they're kind of a dick. And you're like, why are you acting this way? You know what I mean? Would you have been this same person 5 years ago? Mm-hmm. Or would you have been like, hey, oh, thanks so much. It's nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. You know?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. You just... Everybody always compares themselves to, like, someone else. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Where they're just like, I don't know, I wish I could do this, or I wish I had that, or I wish I... And then when I realized, like, hey, I got to stop comparing myself because just because that person's doing well doesn't mean that I'm not, you know? And I stopped comparing myself to other people and started comparing myself to like, who was I 6 months ago, 12 months ago? You know what I mean? Like, that's the things that I started to pay attention to. And that's what actually made me feel better, was to go back 2 years ago. I made $75 in September from doing comedy. That was it. $75 the entire month, all 30 days, $75. And we just had the first weekend and I made $475. And I'm like, that's a big improvement.
Yeah.
And we're not even through the month yet, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to brag, and I know that's, you know, it's not a lot of money or whatever, but it's more than it was, you know?
Sure.
And so it's like, oh, okay, look, I'm doing better. Mm-hmm. I'm getting better. I'm trying. Right. That's I don't know.
And I can definitely relate to what you're saying. And you keep saying the word like better. I started asking myself that too. Like, what am I missing? Like, what am I? If I'm not anxious about money, I'll be anxious about my wife's safety.
Yeah.
If I'm not anxious about my wife's safety, I'll be anxious about if my kids are safe.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not anxious about that, I'm gonna be worried about how Jesus views me.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not worried about that, it'll always be something.
Yeah.
So what is like that safe? Like what is like that? I had to ask myself, what was I lacking of my security?
Mm-hmm.
And it was I just wasn't okay with myself.
Yeah.
I wanted other people to like me.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted other people to respect me.
Yeah.
And I was willing to go to any venture or journey to make it that way. Because I was so insecure in my own skin that I was like, hey, dude, whatever I need to do to make sure you're my friend, I'm going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, nothing fucking, no homo.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
like, I mean, yeah, if I need to tell a fib or two, I'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah, if I think
You
it's
know?
gonna, if this is gonna, yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I had to learn to be comfortable with myself,
Right.
to just be like, this is me, like, especially when you meet other veterans,
Yeah.
because we were both in the Marines, we were both in the infantry, we both did 2 deployments.
Mm-hmm.
We never went to Iraq, we never went to Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not because we didn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because we chose not to.
Right.
We joined up. We said we'd go. We passed all the tests. We did all the training. We did everything we were supposed to do. And then someone 17 ranks above us or whatever was like, these guys are going and these guys aren't. Mm-hmm. And that was it. That was the decision.
Right.
It had nothing to do with us. But I felt real insecure when I would meet other veterans, and they'd be like, oh, you were infantry? Did you do any deployments? And I'm like, yeah, I did too. And they'll be like, oh, Iraq or Afghanistan? You're like, it was
Right.
on you, and we went to Okinawa. I didn't go,
Right.
And you just feel lesser. Like I felt like when I got out of the Marines, one of the big things that put me in depression is that I felt like I failed everybody. I felt like I let everybody down. Because I didn't go to Iraq. I didn't go to Afghanistan.
Me too.
And I felt like I had failed and that I had somehow not lived up to it, or like I hadn't earned my place in the uniform. I hadn't earned my place in the Marines. I hadn't earned my place in life. You know what I mean? Because we were told, you're a boot, you're nothing until you go to Iraq or Afghanistan, right? And then we didn't get to go. And
Right.
it was like we were like bombs that never went off, And so it's like, okay, we failed. And I had a hard time like looking people in the eye when they would ask me about my military service, because I'm like, I failed. You know what I mean? Like I didn't go. I didn't earn it. I didn't, people are going to be disappointed in me. And once I told that once to a couple like Iraq vets, and they were like, that's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. They were like, who cares? You did it.
Right.
You signed up. You tried. Nobody, it's not up to you. They're like, we might make fun of you, like,
Right. Yeah.
in a friendly way, but we're not going to.
Iraq vets are very chill.
Yeah, because they're like, it was terrible.
Yeah.
It was, we talk shit because we had to go through it, and we're mad that not everybody got to go through it. But now that we're older, I'm really glad you didn't have to go through it. Like,
Right.
90% of the Iraq vets I meet are like, yeah, man, be happy you didn't go. Like, be happy you didn't do that. Be happy that this didn't happen or that didn't happen. And you're like, oh, you're right. Like, I should be more grateful or whatever, But I think that what we were talking about, how we don't feel good enough and stuff, I think a lot of that came from the military. And it wasn't until recently that I started hanging up like some of the military stuff in here, because I was like, I don't know if I want people to know about that. You know what I mean? Because I don't want people to ask me questions, and I don't want to have to like watch the
Right.
Are you going to be disappointed in me? Because it's so weird, because it's like when people ask you, did you go to Iraq? Did you go to Afghanistan? What they're really asking is, did you kill anybody?
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's what they want to know.
I remember coming back, too. I remember coming back from our first deployment, and people in my hometown were like, did you kill anybody? And I'm like, no.
No. And they were kind of like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're proud of you. And you're like,
and they have,
no, you're
and
not.
the people that I talked to have absolutely no idea. They had no idea what was going on.
No. Nobody does.
And I'm basing that off of the questions that I was asked.
Oh,
they were asking, like, very, very unaware questions. And, but, like, as far as the Marines go, has your kids, when your kids, since you've had them, have they changed your perspective of if you'd go back or not? Because mine have.
Yes and no. I don't know, man. It's because it's so different than it was. Like when we joined, there were 2 wars going on. Mm-hmm. And everybody who joined up.
We didn't know that, though, at the time.
I mean, I knew Iraq was winding down.
I thought Afghanistan was winding down as well.
That's just it. That's what they told everybody for 15 years is that, yeah, we're pulling out of Afghanistan and, and then
peacetime.
Yeah, peacetime. But there was still going on, and it was still like, because I started the delayed entry program in 2008. Mm-hmm. So it was only 7 years after 9/11.
Yeah.
Iraq was still going on, Afghanistan was still going on, and I signed up to go infantry because I wanted to go.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, it wasn't because, and it was because I just wanted, I wanted to do my part. You know what I mean? That's what everybody wanted to do.
Yeah.
People think that, I get a lot of comments on the internet about how people will say, like, oh, well, you're a warmonger, or you're a bootlicker, or you're just trying to forward the military industrial complex and stuff like that. And it's like, no, when we signed up, we did it because it was the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. We did it because, I don't know where you were, but on September 11th, it was like, oh, we got attacked. And if you don't want this to happen again, you better sign up and go fight. Mm-hmm. And everybody's like, well, I don't want anybody else to die. So I need to go fight. I need to go. It was like, even though you were going to a different country, you were still playing defense. You know what I mean? But now you kind of look back on it and you're like, oh no, we were kind of just taken over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You realize you were lied to about certain things, and you're just like, oh. Well, so it's that would change my opinion. I'm not a huge fan of. I don't like to talk politics, but I'm not a huge fan of our government, no matter who's in power.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which I'm a little scared to say on camera because things happen to people these days, Mm-hmm. But I don't know if the only reason I would go back now is if I thought that me going would keep my son or daughter from having to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they were like, hey, we're getting ready to draft everybody. Mm-hmm. We need one person from each family. I'd be like, well, I'll go back.
Yeah.
I'll go do something. You know what I mean? Don't take my kids.
Right.
That's probably the only reason I'd go back. Uh-huh. Yeah, I did love
when we were in, it was fun.
I loved it.
It was a lot of fun.
There were days where I hated it. There were days where I was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
But then there were other days where I loved it. I loved eating burritos and hanging out and shooting mortars was fun. It would be annoying at times. They take the fun out of it, but at the end of the day, you're like, I got to drop bombs today. That was pretty cool. Hanging out in the field, everybody in sleeping bags, it was like a sleepover with all your friends. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like a long camping trip.
Yeah.
You remember Malaysia? Do you ever think about Malaysia being in the jungle?
Yeah.
I've got some pictures of you, me, Long, Hiller Blair, and we're all shirtless in the jungle with knives and taking Rambo pics and stuff like that. I remember Do you remember the pig?
Yeah.
It came and attacked Sergeant Kearns or whatever.
Right.
And just trampled all over him in his sleeping bag.
Mm-hmm.
It sounded like a train coming through. It was like, like that. And then you just hear it like, and we all got out of it. And we're like, what happened? And he's like, oh, it was a pig, man. I got hit by a pig. And he like pulled up his shirt and he had like hoof prints on him.
Yeah. We're running across them.
Yeah. I don't know, man. What do you think about the military?
Well,
it's complicated, huh?
I mean, at this point, like, my eyes have been opened too far to the point where I'd be neglecting what I know and my beliefs if I were to ever go back in that direction. I don't think that it comes down to, like, wars happen because people argue, and then they send people over, and then people die. People that aren't in charge of other people have to kill people that didn't put them here on this earth, that have no responsibility or have no question on where they're going when they die. And now that's on your hands. Somebody put that on your hands. It's past the politics.
I think I wish I could remember who said it and the exact quote, but it was along the lines of, war is just old men arguing and young men dying.
Yeah.
Because that's what two old people get in a fight and now their armies are going at each other. Right. You know what I mean? And it's like, they really don't have skin in the game. Right. You know? Or at least I don't think so.
And to, like, leave behind my children and my wife to go fight for a country that hates us already.
Yeah.
For the government that we can't trust. Mm-hmm. I don't think I would.
I don't think I would.
You're gonna have to kill me because I'm not going back voluntarily. I can tell you that.
Don't tempt them because people and accidents happen to people all the time now. Mm-hmm. And it was weird how it used to be a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
How it was like, hey, the government might have killed JFK and Martin Luther King. And that was the only ones you knew about.
Right.
And now it's like, and this person, and this person, and this person, and this person. And you're like,
well,
oh, wow, okay, so this happens like a lot. There's a lot of suspicious deaths out there, huh? And they're like, maybe.
People have taken, like, Christianity and, for lack of a better term, completely demonized it.
Yeah.
They have taken, it's like they try to study the Bible and they find out a few things about Christ, and then when there's a couple of statements that they don't align with, they want to shove repentance down somebody's throat. Yeah. Which is not what Jesus did at all.
No. And I believe that. And they always bring up, like, the shitty thing is that, like, the church has been involved in some terrible things. And that is because the church is made up of people.
Yes.
And people have free will to do what they want. And people will always, power corrupts. So if you become the head of a church and you're a very powerful person, you're going to try to you're probably going to try to get away with some things. Right. And I'm not saying that it's okay, but also people are like, okay, well, why would God let people like that into his church? I'm like, because if he didn't let any sinners in, no one would be there. Right. You have to let in the bad people so that way they can then become good people. Right. You know what I mean? Or no one would get in. Right. And people are talking about, like, oh, well, what about the Catholic priest that, like, touched kids and then they just got moved to another church or they got moved somewhere else or whatever? Mm-hmm. That sucks. That's terrible. I personally wish they would go to jail. Yeah. But the church is all about forgiveness. So if the church can't forgive these priests that have done bad things, then no one can. You know what I mean? Then it's like
Right.
you can't preach forgiveness and then when forgiveness, it's time to give forgiveness, not give it.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And I feel like it's once those priests die, they're going to face their judgment, much worse than anything we could do.
Right.
But also, you know, like I get frustrated with it. Yeah, I get real, and there's lots of people out there who take Christianity and they use it to attack people, which is not what it's about at all.
Yes.
It's not. It's supposed to be the whole reason Jesus came back was because he was like, hey, you guys aren't getting it.
Right.
Be good to each other.
Yeah.
Love each other. Forgive each other. Try your best.
He came to serve.
Yeah, he was like, I'm here. Let me help.
Mm-hmm.
Let me try to take care of you. Let me try to help you. I'm supposed to be the one that you guys emulate off of, you know?
Right.
And it's like so I read the Bible every day. This this took a real religious turn, and if you're not into religion,
likewise as well.
What's that? Yeah,
likewise.
And I, you know, I don't understand everything I read, but I try my best, and I try to figure it out and stuff like that, and then I just try to like live how I think I'm supposed to. And the thing that I've gathered, because I've read through the entire Bible, I think this is my fourth time around reading through, because I do this thing called Bible in a Year, and every day it pulls a chunk out and you read through it, and then they talk about like what it means, and you start on January 1st, you end on December 31st, and then it just repeats, and you do the entire Bible in a year. And the thing that I have realized is that the entire Bible is just full of really messed up people. All of the heroes. Think about, I mean, Noah and Moses and David and you know, Ruth and all of them. All of them are extremely messed up, damaged, flawed people who tried their best and God used them to do something good.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they were still really screwed up.
Yeah. Wasn't Moses a murderer?
Yeah. David's son, Solomon, King Solomon, he's known as the richest and smartest man that has ever lived. You know? Sacrificed his children to Moloch, the owl god. Like, performed ritualistic sacrifices on infants, like we were just talking about, whatever, but is considered one of the smartest, most, like, I don't know, richest kings of Israel that they've ever had. He screwed up big time, but he also did some good things, you know, because, like, he just lost his way. Yeah. And it's like David, same thing. He conquered armies and you know, was one of the best kings Israel ever had. Terrible dad. Terrible husband. You know, cheated. You know, the whole story about Bathsheba where he saw a girl. He's like, I like her, sleeps with her, gets her pregnant, and then has her husband killed in a battle so that way he can marry her, and then everything's like okay, you know?
Oh my gosh.
Right. Terrible person, right? But he did some good things. And it's like the whole point of the Bible is that like nobody gets it right.
Right.
Except for Jesus. He's supposed to be the one person that's like, he didn't sin, he didn't do this, he didn't do that, he didn't, you know what I mean? And so that's what you're supposed to take from it, is that everybody screwed up. Right. But they tried their best.
Yes.
And that's what you're supposed to, I mean, that is my loose interpretation of the Bible. I've never been to seminary school. I've never studied it. You know, I just read it.
Right.
You know.
And like with all these different kinds of Christianity, I don't necessarily think Jesus would care if you're a certain type of one. I think he just wants you to believe that he died on the cross and to put your good works into his faith.
Yeah. I've struggled with this and this topic for a while because my wife's Catholic. And she's raising our kids to be Catholic, and they believe certain things. But I grew up Methodist, and so I didn't believe the things that she believed. I've been baptized, I've had communion, but I haven't had my first communion in the Catholic Church. I haven't been baptized in the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife thinks that doesn't count. And she wants me to get it redone. But I think it doesn't matter what church it was done in because my intentions were the same
exactly
as I would have done it. Now, it's hard for me to say that because, like, I also get nervous, like, oh, my kids are going to see this, and I don't want them to come to me and be like, so do you think it's all bullshit? And it's like, no, I didn't say that. I just said that, some people do it a little differently. And I think the point is try.
Mm-hmm.
Try your best. Try to follow what he says,
Right.
One thing I do like about the Catholic Church is that they have extra books of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
They have I don't know, 4 or 5. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
But when you read them, they're really good. Like, there's a lot of good messages in there that you're like, I wonder why they got rid of these in the Protestant Bibles and stuff like that.
Does Jesus say anything about worshiping Mother Mary in the Bible?
No, he doesn't say anything about it, and I know what you're talking about because that was one thing I brought up to my wife is like, hey, why are you praying to Mary? She's not holy, she's not whatever. And she says that you don't pray to her. How do I describe this best? What it comes from, the reason why she's respected so much is because in ancient times when there were kings and queens, the queen was the king's wife, right? Well, you don't respect the queen until she gives birth to the prince. Once she gives birth to the prince, then you show her respect, or princess or whatever. And then she becomes the queen mother. Once you're the queen mother, then it's like, oh, we respect you. Without you, our king wouldn't be here. And so Mary is considered kind of like a queen mother.
Okay.
You're giving her respect not because she married the king, but because she gave birth to the king.
Okay.
And you're like, thank you so much. If it wasn't for you, he wouldn't be here. And that's kind of, now, I'm sure some people twist it and maybe get confused, and maybe there are people that do worship Mary.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the reason why she's respected so much is because without her, he wouldn't be here.
Yeah, I don't know much about Catholicism besides that that they pray to the Mother Mary.
Yeah.
And that's really all I know. But like I see online on Reddit about like Protestants fighting with Methodists and all these people fighting about their beliefs.
They'll always be fighting.
Yeah.
They'll always be fighting. That's why when people talk about like Israel, Palestine, Gaza Strip, and they're like, why can't they figure it? I'm like, they'll never figure it out.
What's the deal with the red heifer?
What's that?
The red heifer that's going on over there in Israel. It's about like they're trying to like sacrifice a red heifer, and then when a red heifer gets sacrificed, then I guess that's like the coming back of the Messiah.
I haven't heard anything about. I don't know anything about.
I could be off on that.
I really don't know that much about Judaism or Islam. Mm-hmm. I've read a little bit of stuff because it's crazy to me that they all started the same. Like, it all started Abraham. So Abraham was God's chosen people, the Jewish people, right? Yep. And then he has 2 sons. He has Isaac and Ishmael. Ishmael came first, but through his concubine or whatever, he had Ishmael. Well, Abraham's wife gets mad that Ishmael is around and his concubine. So she kicks them out. And this is when people were like nomads and would travel.
Yeah.
So they went off by themselves and survived. And Ishmael's lineage starts Islam. Isaac keeps going with with Judaism until Christ gets here, and then it breaks off into Christianity. So if you were looking at it, it's a tree with the same trunk. And then one branches off here, and then one branches off later here. Like that. But it's still all from the same thing. So it makes me wonder, like, there's got to be truth to it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's got to be. It can't be all wrong because it all came from the same place
Right.
and then branched out.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sure our comments are going to be full. The comment section is
Right,
going to be full of
yeah,
be like, these
yeah.
two idiots don't know. Yeah, and whatever. It is what it is. But
I don't know much about the Bible, but I mean, I can tell you that I believe it to be true, simply for the fact of that's how I feel about this, just what I feel in my faith.
yeah. Yeah.
That speaks for me.
I think so.
You know?
It's one of those things where I think some people don't feel that way. Like they don't get that feeling, you know? And I feel bad for them, like especially if you have no religion. Like if you're like, oh, I hate all religion. It's like, oh, well, that's sad, man, because you're missing out on a lot of love and a lot of like community, and you're missing out on a lot of like good messages.
That's how I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
I had I wouldn't even consider myself to be. I was nothing more than self-serving.
What?
Nothing more.
I went to church in boot camp because it was like 2 hours where you didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
I didn't go because I wanted to know Jesus. I
Right.
went because I didn't want anybody to yell at me for 2 hours.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But then after I graduated boot camp, I didn't step back into church for years.
Right.
Because unless it was like Sunday or Easter, or I mean Christmas or Easter, you know?
Uh-huh.
And that was the only time I'd go, just to like make my mom happy or whatever.
Yeah.
And then once I got out, I really struggled, and a lot of my depression and anxiety, church was kind of a way of just being like, because it started with me being mad at God. That's how I started reading the Bible and like going to churches, because I was mad and I wanted to find holes. And I wanted to be like, this is dumb. This is stupid. Look at this. What about this? And the more I would read, the more I'd be like, oh, okay, I guess, whatever, fine, that makes sense. But this is still stupid. And then I read another part and I'd be like, oh, okay, well, I guess that kind of makes sense. You know, like that. And the more I read, the less angry I felt, and the more like, oh, yeah, I do cause myself problems. You know what I mean? Like, I do things that screw myself up. You know,
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
My kids opened me up to that mentality. My wife and my kids are definitely the reason what brought me to Jesus, is like, because it's like, how do you feel the feeling? Like, how do you feel the feelings that you have for your children and for your wife, and think that that's just like
Unique to you?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, bro, it's like, I don't know, it's just immense love,
Yeah.
and that's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah,
know?
because it's not in me.
Right. And
When
like,
when I was by myself, yeah, I was like, I didn't have this love.
right.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know this feeling, or like,
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. So you're like, this has to come from somewhere.
And like it just, yeah. And they're my fuel to be good.
Right.
They're my fuel to try, you know. But
Exactly. That's it. That's where, I mean, it kind of circles back to like where a lot of anxiety came from, where it's
Yeah.
like, I'm not good enough. When I hope my kids don't see, you know,
yeah, my 20s was full of that.
oh, my kids are gonna see me failing. Oh, my kids are gonna think I'm a loser. My kids are gonna, you know, my wife's gonna think that I failed, or that I'm dumb, or I'm broken, or whatever. Like, that's where all of my anxiety came from. Like, am I a good dad? Am I providing enough? Do they
Yeah.
have enough? Are they,
Right.
you know, like, one thing that my kids love to do is we go out, we get coffees. They always get, you know, it's more like a milkshake than a coffee or whatever.
Yeah.
It's always some like ice cream chocolate frappuccino thing. Anyway, we'll get coffees, we'll get in the car, and then we drive around rich neighborhoods and look at fancy houses. and they love to point out like, oh, I want a house with a balcony, or I want a house with like a garage like covering, or a round driveway, or whatever. And then we just like, oh, I really like those. I like those windows, or I like that door, but it's all things that we can't afford. And I like doing it with them because I like spending time with them, and I like, talking. And we also talk about, life, politics, religion, all kinds of stuff while we're in the car. And I like it, but then sometimes we get done and I'm like, is our house good enough? Am I failing them? Am I doing okay? Especially with being a comic, because it's a ridiculous job. It is an insane chase your dream bullshit endeavor, right?
Do all comics view it that way, do you think?
No, and I love doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason that I got into doing this was because I guess there were two reasons. A, I feel like when I joined the Marines, I rolled the dice. And I'm like, this could go really good, this could go really bad.
Yeah.
I got out the other side and I won. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I got disability pay that allows me to travel and spend money on like the studio and stuff like that, which I wouldn't have done, I wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, let me roll the dice again. Let me double down, see if I can make it as a comic, and I'll try my best, Mm-hmm. And the second reason is that this is the only job I knew I would give 100% to. All the other jobs I've ever had, I've done the thing where I'm like, I don't want to go to work today. I could make this phone call and maybe make another sale, but I don't want to. It's 20 minutes till lunch. I'm not doing that.
Right.
I'll put that off till next weekend. I don't want to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Selling cars. You'd see somebody drive through the parking lot, and I'd watch a salesman run out to like chase their car and like, let me talk to you for a second. And I was like, I'm never doing that. That's stupid.
Bro.
Right? Yeah. And so that's how I knew I wasn't going to be successful in that job, because I wasn't willing to do everything that you were supposed to do to be successful. Yes. And comedy is the only thing that I knew I would give 100% to. And I was like, if I give 100% for 6 years, which is the exact same amount of time that I was in the Marines, maybe I'll have something to show for it. And here I am 6.5 years in, and it's starting to make sense. It's starting to not be like ridiculous. You know what I mean? It's still it's still the most expensive hobby. But
yeah,
like I said when we were outside, I was like, I think within a couple months, maybe a year, it might all make sense. It might all fall into place, and it gets me excited. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like I rolled the dice, and we're about to find out. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's the only, that's, I don't even know how we got on that subject, but
yeah,
I know what you mean though about you. Sometimes you look at your kids and you're like, am I?
Yeah, well, mine's not necessarily am I failing them, because mine's more or less of like, how on earth would I let them see me get drunk and beat shit out of somebody?
Yeah.
Or how would I let them see me like seriously injure somebody? Or like how would I let them see me like throw up from drinking, or like be on hard drugs, or like like how I used to be? Like how would like that affect them? Like their little minds that are here because of you. And like with my situation, when you have children out of wedlock, whether you know it or not, you're automatically giving that child the short end of the stick, because he or she is growing up in a house that's not with both the mother and the father. And even if it is, they do have mom and stepdads, it's not the same.
Yeah.
And when you're young, dumb, and full of cum, those aren't things that you think about.
No, you don't think about that at all.
And I that like these are things that I think about with my son. Is like I think about sometimes when he's over at my house, he's very overwhelming, but the silence of him not being around is way more overwhelming than his voice.
Oh yeah.
And with my daughter's already 4 years old and she's reading books. And I'm like, I'm going to be talking to you and having adult conversations with you here in the blink of an eye.
And it's the best.
And you're a little bit farther along than I am.
It's the best.
You almost have adults, don't you? Or one of your
my daughter's 15. She'll be 16 soon.
Yeah.
And my son is 9. But people always talk about, oh, I missed the baby stage. I missed when they were just little pudgy things, and they, and that's great. And they were super cute, and I do miss it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, you see an old photo, and you're like, oh, I miss.
It's almost like a golden era.
Yeah, but when they get older, it's more fun.
Yeah,
you get to talk to them. You get to it doesn't get easier, but it's more fun, and it's like I found with my daughter when she was little, I didn't know how to be a girl dad. I didn't know that girls need oh, you look so pretty today, and oh, you like that. I was just kind of like, get up, go to school, make good grades. I felt like I just had to be strict, disciplined dad.
Mm-hmm.
And then as she gets older, I realize oh no, she just wants you to talk to her. She just wants to be part of your,
Yeah.
And it's I want to be part of her life too. And as she gets older, she wants to spend more time with friends. And I'm like, oh man, I missed out on some opportunities. So I'm really trying to make up for that. But when you say when they're around, it can be overwhelming. Mm-hmm. I get that too. When I'm home, there are times where, my son wants to play fight or climb on me or, punch me or whatever. And it's fine. It's fun. I love doing it. But after a while, you're like, okay, buddy, I'm tired. Dad needs a break. You know what I mean? But then I come up to St. Louis and I don't see him for a couple days. And I'm like, man, I really miss him, And
Right.
I'll call home and be like, hey, how was school? Fine. What'd you do? Nothing. And you're like, okay,
Yeah.
and you're like, I really miss you and I just want to talk to you, but I get it, and kids just don't, they don't think like that. He's just
right.
He's doing something, he's playing with dinosaurs or something. He doesn't want to talk about school. School sucked for 8 hours. He wants to come home and be a kid again.
I know. What fucking kid likes school?
Yeah.
I was just at one of my, this has been a little bit earlier this year, but medication in children is such a common thing now, and I don't fucking get it.
No, well, it was bad when we were kids. You remember the ADHD, ADD thing?
It's real bad now.
Now it's autism.
Oh, bro.
Now they don't diagnose ADD, ADHD anymore. They're like, oh, he's just autistic, and they put you on the spectrum and all kinds of stuff, and it's like, all right, is he just a weird kid?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And my kid was 5 years old, and one of his teachers was talking about putting him on a medication, and I'm like, oh, because he's not paying attention in your class?
Yeah, maybe you're bored.
5 years old? It's what kid likes school? What kid's gonna sit and pay attention in school? And then when somebody wants to misbehave, you want to shove a pill down their throat and call it good?
We're not.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
And you wonder why your kid's in the back of the class
Exactly.
It's because you gave him.
I was one of those kids, bro.
I was one of those kids.
What were you on?
Concerta.
Is that an amphetamine?
No, I think it is. I think it's legal meth.
Let me ask you this. How long were you on them until you started abusing it?
I don't think I ever abused it because my parents were in charge of, they'd make you'd be leaving the house and they'd be like, wait, stop.
Yeah.
Take this. Okay. And I didn't care.
I was high for hours.
I would just zone out in the back. It didn't work. I don't know. I can't understand it. Some people that I see now, because I know adults that abuse Adderall,
Oh,
and they're
yeah.
like
Oh.
jittery, and they're doing all kinds of stuff, and it's like they don't sleep for 3 days or whatever.
And
but
you
when I
know.
took it as a kid, I was just like,
Mhm.
I was just like a zombie. So it's like I don't know if it.
I remember when I would take it, I mean, it would hit me like, dude, I was 16 years old, maybe 15, 16 years old, and I was pumped up on Adderall or Vyvanse. And I would go into school and I wouldn't eat lunch. I wouldn't go have snacks. I would sit and I would look at my books. And my grades jumped up from like D's and like rare F's to like B's and high C's.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because I was high. I didn't want to do anything but sit there and grind my teeth and look at material that I could learn about.
Yeah, you're like, I got to get something done. I've got so much energy. I just want to do,
But what's bad about it is like at an early age, I came to the understanding that like I might have an addictive personality because like I'm craving more of this, and like the same thing would go for like drinking. When I would drink,
Yeah.
I found out very early, 15, 16, when I would get into my dad's liquor cabinet. I knew that once that buzz, that quick like initial buzz was over, I needed more.
Yeah.
I needed it. If I didn't have it, my whole mood was going to change.
Mm.
And like that was with the booze. I noticed it. I really noticed it with the Vyvanse though. And I abused it one time. I think I took like 10 pills, 8 to 10 pills in one sitting.
Wow.
And I was just like, I need more. And I remember my parents had caught me, and they started reaming my ass, bro. And now I'm like, what the fuck did you think was gonna happen? You want to put a child on the same thing that Nazi Germany invaded Poland with in 19 hours. They did that.
Yeah.
And now you're getting me all caught up because I'm some fucking kid that wants another pill.
Mm-hmm.
You put me on it.
Yeah. I don't know. Because my parents they did it too.
And let me just say I have I don't hold. That's just an example. I don't hold any hostility towards my parents.
Right.
I have forgiven my parents. I have no hostility in my heart towards my parents.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because I feel, and that's through Jesus, and because I feel that way, I'm able to speak freely about this now.
Yeah.
And I just don't.
I went through that. I mean, I think but that's the thing about being a parent though. It's like you're just trying your best. You know, and the thing is your parents probably had some doctor tell them, "Oh, Trevor needs this.
Yes.
If you give this to Trevor, Trevor will be better."
Yeah.
And they were like, "Okay, well this is what our kid needs." If a doctor told me that, I'd probably believe him. You know, if I didn't have any information like we do now about it, like,
yeah.
And so it's like I understand at the same time. You're like, yeah, how could they do that to me? And it's like they were kind of nudged in that. You know what I mean?
And what's made me really like make my mind up about this is like I have kids now.
Yeah.
And like over my dead body, will you put a synthetic drug in my child's body?
Yeah.
Over my dead body, and I'll fist fight you over that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not gonna put anything in my child's body because they're not behaving or because they're not academically up to par with what you say they need to be at.
That's another thing that I don't understand is like, how are you going to judge every kid the exact same?
Exactly.
And then be like, oh well, this kid's not as good. It's like,
let me ask you this: because you took those medications in high school, do you think that they changed anything in your brain pattern, or do you think they affected you?
Well, I can't remember when I stopped taking them because I know I started taking them around 3rd grade, and I can't remember when I stopped taking them. I can't remember, but I also played football
Yes.
And I know that I got rocked several times.
Like in your head?
Oh, yeah. Really, really bad. Like,
Man.
and I remember...
Concussion?
I remember feeling different after getting hit a couple times. Like, being, like, angry. And somebody would be like, what's wrong? You're like, I don't know. I'm just mad. Shut up, you know?
Uh-huh.
And then people would be like, dude, why are you... You're like, what happened? You were fine earlier. You're like, I don't know. My head hurts. Shut up. You know? And then you just like, but it kind of like sticks with you.
Yeah.
And so I wonder sometimes like, okay, did that change my personality? Was it football that changed my personality? Is it the medication? Is it the, I just found out recently that like I have like a type of dyslexia.
That's what you're saying. I heard you say something about that.
Yeah, and so with mortars, right?
Yeah.
Deflection and elevation. It's just yelling out 4 numbers.
Yes.
It used to make me have panic attacks because if I can't, when I'm doing math, numbers like switch places on me. Like if you wrote down like a 4-digit number and held it up and said, "What is this?" really quick, I would probably get it wrong because I would be like, you could write down like 3214 and I would say 2413 or something like that. Like it was just,
if you were to stare at that number, would you see the same thing?
No, if I stare at it and then I'm like, I would have to go 3, 2, 1, 4 like that.
Really?
And so I do it. I do it like that because of the Marines, because they'd be like deflection.
Yeah.
3, 1, 5, 7 or whatever,
Yeah,
and then you repeat 3, 1, 5, 7, and in my head I'm like 3, 1, 5, 7, 3, 1, 5, 7.
Yeah.
3, and I would make it line, perfect. But it's really bad with big numbers. It's
okay,
really
like
bad.
digit wise.
Yeah. One thing that has always screwed me up is that commas.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When you separate 1,000, you're like, oh, well, you put a comma after every third, decimal, or like what it's like. If I wrote 1000, the comma goes after the 1, but it's like, what? It's like, how do I know how many zeros are going to be here? And then I have to count backwards and go back and add the commas. Like, that just seems backwards to me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you read left to right, but then when you're adding commas to a number, you have to go right to left to find out 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, 2, 3, comma, 1, 2. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, well, now I'm going back. That doesn't make sense to me.
How often does that happen to you?
Well, I try as hard as I can to never have to do any type of math whatsoever, which my wife gets so mad at me because she wants to talk about things like a budget, and she's really good at math. Mm-hmm. And so she'll be throwing out numbers and she can tell. She'll be like, "You're not listening, are you?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry. You lost me.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." The other day she was trying to explain something and she was in the bathroom like taking off her makeup and I had been brushing my teeth and she was talking to me and then she looked over and she was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm trying to see if I can gargle mouthwash and pee at the same time and not spill either." She's like, "I'm talking to you." And I was like, well, you lost me. I'm sorry. This seemed more important,
Yeah.
So I'm really bad with numbers, and they used it that and when did you ever work with the 240s?
Minimally.
Well, they do the thing where they're like they do ammo checks where you like have the belt of ammunition and every 5th round is a tracer. So they're like, "How many rounds do you have left?" And I'd be like, 1,000.
Yeah.
They'd be like, "No, that's not right. How many rounds?" And I'd be like, 15. And they're like, "No, that's not right either." It's like,
oh, so what are they wanting you to do? Just go 5, 10,
yeah,
15,
5, 10,
20?
15, 20. And I'd be like, a lot. There's about this much. Like,
Yeah.
we just measure the belt.
Right.
I remember being with Bellis on our second deployment.
Bellis.
He's the generation under us. Machine gunner boot that he was on Burkhart's team, I think.
I just talked to Burkhart the other day.
How's he doing?
He's doing pretty good.
Shout out, Corey. What's up, man?
It was very short-lived. It was just a hello and goodbye, pretty much. But yeah,
sometimes that's all you need.
He's doing good.
You know what I mean?
I hope he's doing good.
But I remember
I remember Bellis, the mustache. He's got a mustache. Yeah, I know Bellis.
But I remember I would like look at Bellis and they'd be like, "How much round do you have left?" And I'd be like, "This much," and he'd be like, 35 or something. You know, he'd yell at the number, and I'd be like, "What he said?" You know,
there you go.
There you go. And it was but yeah, mortars would give me so much anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time I told Sergeant Mendoza I didn't feel comfortable on the gun. I was like, it makes me nervous. I don't feel comfortable. Like, I'm scared I'm going to screw up. And he was like, never say that shit to me. You're never going to be on the... And I was like, I was just being honest, man. Like, I don't want to kill anybody. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to blow up our own guys. Shouldn't I be real with you about that? I don't know.
Dude, my wife's dog, the Corgi, it's been just out of control lately.
Oh, yeah?
It's like this, like, Corgi mix. It's this Amish Corgi. It was like she got it on a Amish farm, which already is bad news because they just take terrible care of their pets over there. And I mean, this dog will only listen to my wife.
Mm.
And it's the size of like it's not a small dog and it's not a big dog.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that, it's like its poops are not necessarily big like my big dogs,
mm-hmm.
but they're big enough that they're annoying. Like they're big enough that when the dog has an accident, it explodes.
Yeah.
And it's not a small amount.
Yeah.
And like this dog's bit me, but I walk in yesterday and this dog's like, we changed its food.
Mm.
And it pissed on itself in the kennel. It pooped all over itself in the kennel. And like the problem with it is like it's scared of me. So if I try to go near it, it's like a dog. It's like Scooby-Doo when it gets scared, all over the place, you know. And you go over to the back of the kennel and there's shit all over the wall because it's just been in it. There's vomit in the kennel, and it gives me anxiety. I was just thinking about that. It gives me anxiety just thinking about that dog sometimes because it's like I don't know what I'm gonna walk into. And, like, if I do walk into a mess, how am I going to take care of it? Because if I let this dog out, it's not going to listen to me. It's got shit all over its paws. So it's like, do I just leave the dog in the kennel and, like, let the house stink? Or do I carry the whole kennel outside while he's acting like a caught rodent in the kennel, flipping around and flinging shit everywhere? Or, like... I'm actually lost on that, bro, because it's actually starting to bother me. It's starting to bother me because it's like becoming a normal occurrence. It chews on shit. It chewed on the TV remote. It's chewed on the Nintendo Switch remotes. It's chewed on all of these valuable things. It's chewed on fucking garments. It's chewed on... I don't even have a... My dog chews on my socks sometimes, but, like, I know that motherfucker's chewing them, too. It's like I barely got socks now. Does your dog chew on stuff?
Mm-mm. Not anymore. I mean, he did. He got into trouble when he was a puppy, for sure. Like, he would always... The more energy he had, the more mischief he would get into. So we found just toys to play with him, you know? And so long as you played with him, he would be like, the rest of the day, he'd be chill. Mm-hmm. And then he might want to play again later in the afternoon. But it was, I don't know. The vomiting and the shitting makes me wonder, like, does he even have like something wrong, like a stomach bug or something like that? It makes him do all that.
Well, when we change his food, it generally happens, but like it's like he'll be out of his kennel and he'll just shit in the house. And it's like, bro, I don't know what it is, but like it fucking stinks so bad, dude. Like not like regular dog poop, like it's bad. And I don't know. Maybe I'm just venting.
that's all right. I have a cat that did the same thing for years,
Yeah,
and we finally had to change. We finally found a food that I guess is better on her stomach, and she stopped like almost completely. And we got her. Here's one thing you could try. They sell calming collars.
Yeah.
They're just like a normal dog collar, but it's like it releases some like pheromone that helps keep them like relaxed. And we got one of those for our cat, but we got one of those for our dog during 4th of July because he freaks out with the fireworks.
Yeah.
He was chill. So maybe try that and let the dog like chill out with that collar. You know, like have your wife put it on so he's not freaking out.
Yeah.
And then maybe you like get to know him like while he's chill and like be like, hey, I'm not a bad guy. You know, like we could be friends. And then like he might get to know you and calm down a little bit.
So we've had that dog now for probably coming up on 2 years. Not one time. So let me put it to you this way. Every single day for the past 2 or so odd years that we've had that dog, every single day that I'm sitting on the couch, it walks in circles around the couch and stares at me because it's so frantic and so sporadic and so skittish that it runs in circles around the couch and waits for me to make moves. And when I make moves, it's like it freaks out, and it only listens to my wife. It only listens to my wife. I can't to this like now. Because he's had some time out of his kennel. He'll have a lot of time out of his kennel because he'll act really good. And then he'll just devastate that track record with like valuables being chewed up. And it's like, bitch, you've been out of your kennel now for 2 weeks. You fucking know better.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you've been disciplined about this or whatever. And it's a dog or whatever. I sound crazy, bro. Those corgi dogs are intelligent, bro.
They're super smart.
I would equivalent them to the psychology of probably a 4 or 5 year old.
Oh, 100%.
They know what the fuck they are doing. Like once that dog figured out, hey, dude, my owner lets me stay out of this kennel. The guy I don't take seriously or listen to. Now, like when I want to come in from going potty outside, I'm just not going to go in there when he says kennel. I'm just going to do whatever the fuck I want because I don't listen to him. And, like, where that falls into, like, a bad thing is, like, dude, I'll walk close to this dog, and it'll look at me and start booping and walking in a different direction. And I'm like, bro, I think I've probably wasted, in the 2 years, over 50 paper towel rolls on this fucking dog because it literally relieves itself of all sustenance in its body when I'm around. It'll just I don't even know, and I'm pretty much just like at this point, what do I do? Do I just accept this or?
No, I don't know. Maybe try the calming collar and try like.
We were at PetSmart the other day, and I saw that they got some like bud or like cannabis bud. Like they have it in
puppy
like
weed. Yeah,
it's like puppy weed. I
saw that. Yeah.
Wonder if that works.
Yeah, it might. I just looked at the time, and if we're gonna go to Gramophone, we should probably take off. It's almost midnight.
Oh, jeez.
They close at 1.
Yo, we gotta go then.
Yeah, I don't want you to miss out on that. So, real quick, let's do one thing to wrap it up. What's a good one we could end on? Let me pull up the list one more time. We'll do one question before we take off. All right, best hot dog toppings.
Mustard.
Just straight mustard, huh? Mm-hmm. I like that.
I really the only veggies that I really eat are I really only eat like garlic.
Yeah. I don't even like hot dogs that much.
Yeah.
I only put it on there because it's like, well, I feel like if you go to a baseball game, that's a time to have a hot dog.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if I was hot dog toppings, I'm pretty simple. I like mustard. I like mustard and ketchup, but that's about it.
Yeah.
I'm not getting super fancy with it. I don't know. Some people get mad if you put ketchup on it. They're just like, ew, that's disgusting.
Or the what are those things called? Man, I'm drawing a blank on a lot of shit. Pepperoncinis.
Oh yeah,
those are pretty
forgot
good.
about those.
Yeah, those are pretty good on hot dogs.
Mustard and pepperoni.
But I do agree with you on like it's one thing to have like a hot dog if you attend a baseball game. It's another thing to have a hot dog like just like an Oscar Mayer wiener.
Just because,
fridge.
yeah.
Just because you don't. I don't do that. I don't do that.
No, I kind of feel like that's a sign of defeat right there. If you're just like, oh, what's for dinner? Oh, we're gonna have hot dogs. It's like, did we give up today?
What's a real Debbie Downer is when you find out where they come from.
Oh yeah, it is.
And then how processed they are on top of that.
Oh yeah, I have a friend who's a comic now who used to work on a hog farm, and his job was to kill hogs. And it's just like the things that he told me about it, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That sounds horrific. I used to know somebody who every time you would order like chicken nuggets, he would just get mad and he'd be like, lips and assholes. That's all that is. Chicken nuggets are just lips and assholes.
Jeez,
and I was like, yeah, but you know chickens don't have lips, right? Like they have beaks. Mm-hmm. And he was like, oh yeah, well, we're still assholes. And I was like, all right, okay, but as long as we all agree that chickens don't have lips.
I mean, don't even get me started on. I haven't even touched chocolate milk since I figured out where that came from.
Yeah, isn't it like a mold or mucus or something like?
So it's all the infected and like, it's like cow's blood and like mucus and pus. And all that shit, what they do is they put in chocolate, like, additive, and then that is their chocolate milk. And once you find out that fun fact, you're like, what's happening in the world?
What? Yeah,
and how long has this been going on?
They give that to kids every day.
Yeah, Nesquik. It's like Nesquik in, like, Prairie Farms.
Oh, okay. Well, on that fun note, yeah, thanks for coming, man.
Thank you for having me.
Let's go get some sandwiches.
Let's.
All right, see you everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.